Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be reviewing the upcoming set for Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. Six Dragons, I think it's called. I'm not savvy to the collab that... I don't know much about Grand Blue, but I've played a lot of card games and I've been playing a lot of Shadowverse lately. And I figure it could be fun to just review the cards and toss it up on YouTube for what it's worth. I'm probably going to say quite a few things that go against the consensus I'm already seeing online. So look forward to that. Be sure to get your angry opinions ready and the such. Let's begin. We're starting with Forest Craft, and we'll just go along the line here. I already did one attempt, but my opinion should be a little bit more solidified. And one last thing before we start, I'm just gonna go with my give a brief rationale of how I plan to evaluate the cards. There's a few things that I want to state. Is a card good? Is a card situational? How many of a card would you run if it is good? Is the card usable and by usable I mean in a deck, would it be the best card for the job that it's doing? Like the best possible of the available ones, that is. And and last but not least, is this a card that doesn't have a place currently in the game, or is it a card that just doesn't have a place because it's too weak? Okay, going in. Cone U, Love and Hatred. I actually think could see some use, but I feel like it's more of a take-two card than an actual standard one. My issue with the card is its mana cost, to be honest. It's 7 mana. Its best case scenario is it enters the battlefield, it gets evolved, which is not a big deal in this set, but still is still a condition. And in that situation, it can wipe out 2 creatures, assuming there's no Intimidate or Shonky business. And you gain 6 defense in the process. And hopefully, Cone, you survive this process. With that being said, I don't think my issue with it is it's a 7 mana card. It's a tempo swing, but it's not one. It's the kind of tempo swing that buys you a turn. That inherently means it's more of a control card. And I don't think it's a bad control card, because gaining 6 life is good, but there are several flavors of that already in Forest. And that would mean that if you're playing it as a control card, that means it's probably Izudia. If a hypothetical evolved deck that has that I don't really see an endgame for in Forest at the moment, or Rose Queen, which doesn't favor cards above 1 mana. There might be a deck that uses this. That deck might be in another set, which is better than quite a few of the Forest cards, as I'm about to say. So, to be blunt, I don't think this card is usable in its current set. I feel like this card... I look at this card, and my mind immediately goes back to Puppet Cat. If this card had cost 1 less mana, if this card was like Apollo and did 2 damage to everything, at its current mana cost, If this card was like a 3/3 or something, maybe it would see play. But 4 mana cost is a pretty important part in most game states. And this is 4 mana, do nothing. Well, it's a 4 mana Apollo. We have Apollo for 3 mana, and if we evolve him, he does 2 damage to everything. This one is 4 mana, costs 1 extra mana to leave a slightly more difficult body to remove, but 3 toughness is not a difficult body to remove. For this reason, I think this card is, in its current state, unplayable, even though it's a free evolve. Comet Drive is a pure side grade to Bear Swipe. Initially, I thought this card would probably be the worst variation of the side of that card, but honestly, there are so many ways to get evolved with Forest and in the current set that it might actually be better, because combo requires you to have a certain type of deck. So if you completely cut out fairy type stuff and go full evolve, this would be a better Bear Swipe. But that being said, Bear Swipe was already not really one of the more popular forest removals. That being said, I think this card is usable. It might be used 1 or 2 of. Also, I probably should mention that for Konyu, but it's hard to say how many of a card is going to be used if the deck that they're supposed to exist in doesn't exist yet. And 7 mana is a pretty hefty investment to begin with. So, usable within its niche, side grade to a niche card. I can't see this card being used more than 1 or 2 times. This card could possibly be a 3 of in its chosen deck. This card is weird. I get the feeling that this card is a tool for a deck that doesn't yet exist. Once again. Currently, there are 2 good uses for Chloe. Use case 1. You are running... You're running a 3 set of Congregants of Undying, and you want to cast it for 8 instead of 9. That is investing a full card slot to that is pretty hefty, but it is a thing that could happen. Aside from that, you have the use case of Azudia, which probably makes the most sense. Azudia already costs 8, but depending on how this card works, it's either used... I wasn't sure if this summons a copy of the card, so you have multiple copies of it. Like, select the follower in your hand, play one, but it stays in your hand. Or if it's just select a card in your hand and play it. I want to believe it's the first one, though. If that's the case, you can make Azudia slightly more consistent, and maybe this card will see play. That being said, Azudia was already sort of a niche deck, and I feel like this is a niche within a niche. If it works well, this is a combo card. If it's got a relevant combo to it, you'll run 3. But I feel like the card this card combos with, isn't out. We don't have it yet. We don't have a card that makes sense for this card. I could be proven wrong. Kind of hope I don't. I get the feeling that if this card is strong, it's going to be a card I hate. This card, I think, could fit quite well into tempo. The give all followers on the field barrier is actually a very strong effect. It's a bit of a win more effect, but if you have a board already and you drop this is probably going to be more punishing than Zirconia. And thus, I think this card will see play in some tempo forest decks. And incidentally, spoiler alert, I think tempo forest will be the strongest variation of forest in the set. That's just my gut feeling going after looking at the cards. I think there will be some evolve decks that work, but I'm not sure forest will be one of them. But at the same time, I feel like tempo and evolve forest will probably be like you'll have people calling the same deck the different things for what it's worth. I think Anthuria, if used, will be like a 1 or 2 drop though. She is a very greedy card, but she is a very greedy card that could just outright win games, which it works for Zirconia. So why wouldn't it work for Anthuria? Aside from the part where there's other good 5 drops, of course. Okay, Starry Sky. I don't think this card is usable in its current state. 5 combo is just way too much. Because you're not burning 0-cost spells for this. Maybe this could be used in Roachcraft now I think about it, but countdown the S word. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all for even for Roachcraft. Like, the issue with this card is just that it's undertuned. It costs 5 combo to get full value out of it. For 1 mana, it's weaker than basically every other 1 mana card in the deck in the Forest Craft, which is saying quite a bit right there. The crest only ticks once, despite having an outrageous combo 5 requirement. I get it. They don't want you to be able to infinite, but really, I think at this current power level, if you could do this 2 or 3 times, I think it would still be fair. Like, the deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower effect is not very strong by itself on 1 card. And I feel like, just like Manamill, they were a little bit too conservative with this card. It's one of those cards where I feel like the design itself is not inherently bad, but the tuning has it to the point where there's no point in using the card. In its current state, I think it's unusable. Okay, Capitan. I think she's a fine card, but my issue with her is pretty simple. Forest has some reasonably strong forward costs already. If we're looking at tempo, we're probably going to be running the 4/3 elf a fair bit. Capitan is very clearly meant for the evolve deck, but she doesn't have to be. The other issue with her is that she's sort of a late game card in a world where Forest is probably going to be the closest thing to an aggro deck, except for its control decks, which I don't think the control decks will want Capitan. Like, they have good 4 drops already. But we'll see. If she is used, I feel like she's going to be like a 1 of 2 of type card. Maybe I'm underestimating her ability to get to Super Skybound art, but I don't think I am. I think this is probably one of the biggest cards for Forest. This card is a big enabler for tempo. Unlike, it'll probably replace the combo fairy that gives everything +1/+1, and it will do so because you don't need to. You can now buff all your followers that are attacking rather than. Basically what I'm trying to say is it enables new combos. For example, let's say that you have the Storm Fairy Crest and you drop 5 fairies on the field. You can so you have 5 Fairies of Storm. They now can do a maximum damage of 13 with this card, where you're looking at 5 fairies with +1/+0 and 1 fairy super evolved. In theory, you could do this on turn 7. That's pretty good. Actually, that's an incredible high roll. Being able to field that is honestly kind of insane. But the possibility is that you could do a turn 7, 13 damage to face with Storm maneuver with this card. In fact, you could go even further beyond with the Evolved Crest later, but I digress. In general, I think you'll be using 1 or 2. But I think generally speaking, you're going to be running this in tempo. You're going to be using 2 most of the time, and every once in a while you'll be using the Super Skybound art, but that's about it there. Then we have the legendaries. I'm kind of worried about this one. It's a 2-mana, 2/1. Skybound art effect is really solid. Being able to get a free evolution is an insanely powerful effect. It's just a matter of this card is powered based on when you draw it. That being said, Forest tends to have pretty good draw power, so I don't think that's a huge issue. There might be some kind of like, I don't know, because having some draw or having things like the stave or tempo feels really bad. But at the same time, if you might end up having some kind of tempo where it's just like you go all in with or you just have a bunch of low cost cards and you just go all in with them, evolving a lot, trying to overwhelm your opponent. I've had decks like that work too. And then last but not least, we have Yul and Societe, Dancing Duo. This card is probably the most generically good card. Well, not just generic. Like, this card, I guess the way how I should describe this is this card has several things going for it. First of all, it's a 5-mana do something. Deal 4 damage to a random enemy follower twice. That means that it is on par with Aura Gravy. Or Aura Gavy. I always call him Aura Gravy because I think it's funny. But that card's seen a lot of use. It's been a very powerful card over time. This card has board presence without evolving itself. Its super evolve effect is insanely powerful. To an extent. But at the same time, I think its super evolve is one of those things that is very powerful to an extent that I feel kind of bad that Forest's evolve deck doesn't feel solid enough to just work. Because I think the issue with the Forest evolve deck is it doesn't build towards some awful combo where you're just going to automatically win. It's one of those cases where it's just you keep flinging things at your opponent until you win, which in all likelihood will be fairies with Storm, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But as far as late game plans go, it's kind of shaky. Which is why my thought on Forest is it's going to eventually gel into a tempo build where you build something or you control the board from the start and you never let your opponent have it, and then you win. In that deck, I think you could still see Yul and Societe, but the deck that they want to be in, I'm not sure if it will exist. But I think they're a good enough generic card that you'll still see them played. If that makes sense. Okay, let's move on to Swordcraft. Swordcraft was pretty stacked. So we have Randall, Feet Fighter, the man with the unfortunate title. Yeah, this card's insane. 2 mana, 3/2. That part's pretty good. Over budget, whatever. The thing that makes this card annoying to look at for me, aside from the name, is that every once in a while you end up in a game where someone drops an Albert turn 5 and goes face. They know, even if they have Albert in hand, they will no longer have to do that because they'll just run Randall, and they'll drop Randall, go face, and it will be the same thing except they have an Albert on turn 9 for sure. It's going to be... This is a very strong aggro sword card. It is not the only very strong aggro sword card. And this is mildly upsetting. But at the same time, yeah, this is a card that I'll see use. 3 of. Pretty easy to see. Storm is hard to be bad, especially when it's a card that is reasonably well budgeted. These cards are basically the same thing. It's basically 2 different cards that will, when evolved, summon the other. Of the 2, I think that Mordred will be the one that sees play if it's used. The premise that I'm working under is that I don't think either of these cards as a standalone are good. If you evolve them, they're good. And I think 3 mana Storm with summon a 2/3 versus 3 mana... Well, let's put it this way. 3 mana 4/3 Storm with summon a 2/3 on turn 4 or 5 versus 3 mana Ward 4/3 summon a 2/1 Storm. The 4/3 Storm makes more... Evolving the Storm follower makes more sense than evolving the Ward follower. Especially for Sword, which has a lot of history being aggressive. This card I'm not super fond of. 6 mana is very heavy. And it competes with some of the best Sword cards, or Sword legendaries. I just don't see this card beating Zirconia in its niche. It having Intimidate is neat, but it's the only Intimidate card in Sword, and 3 toughness is not enough. 3 or even 5 or 6 toughness is not that difficult to deal with a lot of decks. Once or twice. I'll be getting back to the value of Intimidate later when we get to Dragon. But it being the only Intimidate card means that if there was an Intimidate Sword, I think, or more cards with it, maybe you can cheat this. If you have like a deck based around having a bunch of difficult to kill creatures, and you force your opponents to use their specific removal. But as far as I can, the way I see it, this card's just the worst Zirconia. Though, to be fair, Zirconia is a pretty good card. Feather, you run 3 of them. Every deck. Every single Sword deck. Every single Sword deck will run this. People will cry about this card. This card might get nerfed. Maybe. People will screech and rage upon seeing this card on turn 2 of Coin. 3 of them. Every deck. All of them. Every single one. This is a card that is solid, but I don't think she will see use. If there is a deck that specializes in, like if there's big ambush support, we might see something. To be fair, we kind of have some ambush support because ambush is one of those mechanics that works well with the evolve stuff. But let me just point something out. 4 cost. Do you really use the weird removal card that doesn't actually kill something on play versus like the other 4-cost enablers that are already being thrown in, and Zirconia. It's just nah. This card's fun because is for an archetype that Sword currently doesn't have, but I think it will be fantastic. Well, it's for a few. This has been for the Evolve deck, obviously, but I think we're looking at the start of Sword having the potential to do actual control deck. It might not have a huge combo that outright kills the opponent, but I don't think it will need to. I think you're going to be looking at a Sword control deck that will function like mid-range used to, where it's just a matter of my board is better than your board. It always will be better than your board. You can't keep clearing my board. I win. And this card will be part of it. This is Sword's answer to Gensetsu and Yuzuki. And most decks, and anything less than those. This card will probably be a 2 or 3 of in said deck. And it will be incredibly nasty. Knightly Ardor. I think this card will be used in a lot of Sword decks. You can use it in an aggro-based one to get a pseudo Alfred and do very big damn. You can use it in the more mid-rangey decks to get a free super buff on a large pack of followers. You can use it for more evolution. I think the understated part is that you can get 6 life out of this. Between these two, Sword has insane healing this patch. Between both of these cards, you can reliably get 30 health heal from these, and you can also run some of the loot card. You can run the loot cards specifically that give Cup, so that you could end up having Runecraft levels of healing as Sword. I haven't seen people mention that, but it is a thing that exists in this set. Zeta and B are a card that I think will probably fit best in like an aggro archetype where most of your cards have Storm. Because we're getting close to the point where that's a thing that you can do. As it stands, I feel like I can't escape the feeling that this card isn't as flashy as I'd like it to be. 3-2 is a bit sketchy. Like, it feels like the missing link between non-enhanced and enhanced Dogs of War. And when I think about it like that, it seems kind of iffy. The one upside though I can see though is that if this were to be used in mid-range, is that this is one of those cards that summons other cards. So that means that you can use this card to accelerate your Zirconia rally stacks. If it's used 2 or 3 of, most likely. There's a distinct possibility it is not used in some decks, though. But I think it's one of those cards that's good enough to see some use. But I don't think it's a card good enough to be ubiquitous in every Sword deck. Sea of Fun. I think this card actually could be insane in some cases. And my rationale for that is this is probably going to go in a mid-range Sword deck. And I think you're going to be running cards like the 5-mana summon 3 dudes card, which would be absolutely disgusting with this guy. That creates a wall for really easily. The other thing about this guy is that if you can manage a combo like that, you are looking at Super Skybound for basically every card in your hand. Because you can not easily, but plausibly get 4 or 5 evolves in a single turn with this guy. And that means that if you have 2 of this in your hand, your next one is going to be super evolves. And it will immediately tutor your 1 or 2 copies of Sandalphon. I think this guy... First of all, I think Evolved Sword will be a thing. 2, I think Seophon will be a 3 of a minute. Okay. I think I'll have time for Runecraft before I have to take a break. So let's start with that. Runecraft is where I'm going to do some of the hottest takes. I think that the current Runecraft deck will not change too much. I've seen that opinion quite a bit. But at the same time, I'm not sure if that'll be the strongest Runecraft deck. And I think that's going to sound like madness to most people. For context, if you're just watching out of curiosity, Runecraft has basically run the same deck for the first 3 expansions. Other crafts have had crafts or classes or whatever you want to call them have had actual variety in their decks. But Runecraft has been under the tyranny of a very strong combo for a while. And incidentally, I don't think that combo is going away. I just think that the deck that houses it is going to change dramatically. So let me just give you my rationale. I think Runecraft might go back to pure spell boost. Okay, let's begin. This is not the card that does it. This is a card that has a strong effect. I don't think this card will see play, but the reason for that is the use case for this card is you're running exactly 1 spell, and you're using it to tutor that spell. But we do not have a spell in Runecraft, including Dimension Climb, that is worth being the only spell in your deck, because Runecraft has good spells. We might see when we see an absolutely obscene spell that outright wins the game with creatures, you will see this card being played in that deck. But I do not believe this card is I don't think the deck that this card belongs in is currently buildable. This is the card that I think will change a lot of things. 1 mana, 1/1 spell boost hand. So my premise is that we're running full spell boost. That means so you run, and the reason for that is I think that you're going to be seeing something that I call tempo spell boost, where you play cards like this on curve. You play the 2-drop that spell boosts your hand on curve. Instead of you don't run any Earthright, so no more draw a card to get an Earthright. You're just going to be using Foresight and possibly the 2 mana spell boost your hand, draw a card. The reason for that is that you'll be using Wamdus. I'm just going to skip to it because it's important to just show the payoff. And I don't think you'll be using Wamdus on turn 3, mind you, but I think that you're going to be dropping Wamdus as at least a 3 mana 5/5, but probably closer to like a 3 mana 8/8. You're going to also run that 5 mana 1/1 that has the same effect as this. You'll run both of those. You'll run a whole bunch. You'll be running an obscene amount of basically every card you have will either be spell boost or spell boosted, and possibly both if they're like Wamdus. And the basic idea is that you're going to have the potential to win the game before you even get to the end game. And then when you hit end game, it's not like you don't have to run all the stupid Cocutus combo cards. It's only like a 4-card investment after all. You're already using every deck's gonna be using Andangria and Kuon anyway. So instead of running the Earthright shell, you just run spell boost. And you could potentially win beforehand just by having insanely powerful tempo. Because in theory, like, for example, it would not be too crazy to see, like, a hypothetical curve. Turn 1, Suframir. Turn 2, 2/2 spell boost hand. Turn 3, that dude who spell boosts every time he clashes. Turn 4, coin Anagria. Turn 5, 2 mana spell boost plus a 8/8 Whamdus. Or 7/8 Whamdus. Turn 5. No, not even evolved yet. That is insanely hard to counter. And this is on Rune, where the winning combination against Rune is you have to pressure them before they get their I win combo on, or I automatically win on turn 10. Now you might be saying, is this... Yeah, but we already have really good cards with the Earthright stuff, and you're right. I'm just saying the spell boost variation might... The spell boost variation will muddle the waters, because currently everyone knows how to play against Rune. If Rune has different variations that do the same thing, you're going to be seeing people having difficulty dealing with it, and that means that you're going to see variety with the decks. And that's the important thing. Moving on, I also think that because of some of these, I think Earthright Evolve will also become a relevant deck. This is probably one of the strongest Evolve cards. Earthright already has some Earthright Evolve cards. With these and Calgistro, I think you'll be able to have a tempo-ish Earthright that just chips for face, but also just wins on board. Because that's the entire point. You just try to outvalue your opponent, and you just win at some point. The downside, of course, to Earthright is that you don't have your automatic I win combo that most Rune players use as a clutch. But I think that such a deck will be about as playable as many other Tier 2 or Tier 1 decks. At best. I can't see it being much worse than some of the other stuff I've seen. And Dirt's always got to enjoy the advantage of people trying to prepare for the other flavor of Runecraft whenever they play against it. But yeah, so this is a card, I think you see 3 of it in the deck that I'm hypothesizing is existence. Same with Whamdus. Moving on, Rune Portal. I don't think it sees use, ever. It's too expensive. Doesn't do much, or do enough. This card, I don't think it sees use. Too expensive, not enough value. Solid card for what it is, though. Maybe it's better than I think it is. But I think the issue is that it is competing with other good 6-drops. And for some, as you might know, Earthright Rune has a very strong 6-drop already. I think this card sees 3 of use whenever it's used. I think it will be used. In fact, I think Earthright will see a little bit of a resurgence because of this card. 3 of. I'm not sure if this sees use. It's a bit of a messy card, but it's a pretty high value one. Dealing damage to self is kind of nasty, especially if you're running spell boost with less ways to heal yourself. Though I reckon if you're running with the spell boost deck that I'm envisioning, you're probably running at least the Sage Light specifically for healing, and also well, maybe specifically say well, not honestly, Sage Light or the 0/2 from last set with the Drain and stuff. We'll see. It's a deck that I want to experiment with, at least. For traditional Runecraft decks, I feel like this one might be the biggest gain, just because it's a solid 3-mana kill a creature early on. It also has the added benefit of being able to make some cards killable in an easy manner. Alchemic Flare is also just a good card. Good chip damage. Works very well in the current runecraft. Okay, and last but not least, Cagliostro. Between Cagliostro and Alchemic Flare, I think you can see Dirt Rune having a chance to just ping your opponent to death, and it'll place it, and you'll have sort of a puppetish game plan where you do chip damage as you can, and then eventually you just win with an Odin or something. I honestly don't think this card is. I think some people have been evaluating this card based on, oh, you need to play it with the Super Skybound, but I think that this card's good enough where you can just situationally choose when to use it. I think it's solid on 4. I think it's especially solid if you can get Skybound, but I think it's good enough to cast as is. Like, I think the easy comparison would be the Portal Legendary from last expansion, the 4-mana 2/3 or 2/4, where you summon a creature, you get a spell, and if you evolve, it gets pretty nasty. In this case, it's not quite if you evolve, it gets pretty nasty as much as if you hit the conditional. But I think it's serviceable even without it. Is the thing that I'm getting at. Okay, I will be right back. Okay, and we're back. I just realized I probably didn't actually do the full prediction. So, if this is used, I think it's a 1 or 2 of. If this is used, 1 to 3, and it's probably going to be used in the current. It's in the list of cards most likely to be used in the current iteration of Runecraft. 1 to 3. Definitely likely to be used in the current Runecraft. Whamdis was one of the ones I actually did cover. If the deck I think is going to exist comes out, I think you'll see 3. As for standard Runecraft, probably not. Or the current meta Runecraft deck. Cagliostro, I think you see 3 of if she's used. And I think she's going to be fairly ubiquitous in a few of the Runecraft decks. I wouldn't... In fact, to a certain degree, I wouldn't be surprised if she's... aside from, like, the actual... Like, the current meta Runecraft, I feel like I don't think the meta is going to exactly shift to be faster, but I think there's going to be a lot scarier mid-game boards. And I think she might fit into that. So I don't know. We'll see. But I do think that there might be some issues with the current Runecraft if board states become a bit more threatening. Because you can already sort of bully Runecraft out of their super evolves if you go crazy enough early on. Speaking of going crazy early on, we are now on Dragon, which I think, or my opinions shift from a lot of the ones I see online. But we'll see. Starting. 3 mana, 3/3 Ward Aura. I don't think this card sees play. I mean, it might, but the 3 mana slot's pretty full already. And I don't think Ward and Aura are enough to justify on a solid stat unit card is quite good enough. Mari, Magnus Bestie, I don't think her effect's good enough. Because even with her ability to get to Super Evolve, or even with her ability to become free, it's not really a huge gain. And Dragoncraft isn't exactly lacking in 2-drops to use. Crescent 2 Bride, I think, will be a 1 of in a lot of decks. You might see 2 of, but anyone going with 3 of these is crazy. Because you will probably only want to cast this card once. You have 2 of them in your hand. One of those cards is a brick. but I think it's a solid card to play early on. Izmir, I think, is one of the more underrated cards of the set. Dragon tends to have issues with clearing boards, and I think clearing boards is going to become very important in this set. More so than it already kind of is. And this card is a solid answer for that. And Dragon needs some solid answers for that. The easy way for me to describe this card is I think this card will replace Fishman in a lot of decks. I really do. And I think it'll be a 3 of. Also, it fits the Evolve archetype, which is pretty solid. This card is the payoff for Evolve. It allows you to have a 8 mana, 10/8 with Storm. And you can even clear the board while storming. This is, I think this is a good enough win condition that you're going to be seeing it. I sort of mentally view it as Dragon Albert. Now, Super Skybound art might be a bit much, but we'll see. We'll see. Maximum Love Bomb, I think it's okay. This card has a very strong effect if it can't attack followers or leaders until the end of your opponent's turn. I don't know if this card sees play, honestly. It's weird removal. It doesn't automatically kill creatures. But it's in a weird place where the effect is good enough that you might still just use it. I honestly couldn't tell you if this card sees play, but I think it's a good card. I think that when describing like that, I think this card is going to be heavily dependent on the meta. If there is a card that you are specifically trying to counter, you will use this card, and you might even use 3. If you are using this card as generic removal, I think you will use something else. Will this card see play? I think it'll be seen. Meg, here's a really hot take. I think this card will see play. I think Evolved Dragon will be a thing. I think Meg will be in it. Because while 3 mana 5/4 still isn't a huge thing, Dragon just has a surplus of cards that you can just get free evolves from. So it wouldn't be that out there for this card to be able to be a free super evolve at a similar time frame as the other one, the 3 mana that evolves on 7 that evolves on Overflow. The downside, of course, is that you are basically never using her in 3 mana. And for that reason, I could sort of see making her a 1/2 of in an Evolve deck, but it is what it is. Primal Beast Absorption, I think, is a solid card, but it's more for a control deck, and I don't know if a control dragon really can exist right now. One thing that I think a lot of people haven't mentioned when they look at this card is this destroys cards, not creatures. And by destroy, I mean banish. You can steal amulets with this. More importantly, you can remove amulets. Now, you could do that the same with Odin, which is probably the biggest criticism of this card. But this is a counter card that can mess up amulet play. And I think that is a significant consideration. This is much like Maximum Love Bomb. I can't tell you whether this card will see play, but this is a card that will situationally counter certain decks, and if the deck you're trying to counter is tier 0, This card will not only see play, it'll be seen as a hero of the set. But maybe it won't see play. Maybe maybe it doesn't counter anything significant right now. It's a card to keep an eye on, but it's not a card to build your deck around. Willness. This card, I still don't understand how people call this card bad. When I first saw this card, I was like, holy shit, that card's insane. And then I looked on Reddit, and I saw people be like memeing about how awful he is. And I still don't get it. Like, sure, he doesn't have Storm. He's just the biggest Intimidate card in the game. And you need specific removal to kill him. And also, he clears the board by himself. Like, I'll just be frank. I think you run 3 of them in every dragon deck for the foreseeable future. Every single one. And the reason for that is simple. He is a pain in the ass to remove. And even if you do remove him, he resets the board state. So worst case scenario, you make your opponent seethe and burn their resources to kill him. Because they can't kill him with creatures, they have to use removal. Now sure, if you're playing against a deck with Odins, you might want to be careful with them. But how many if your opponent's dropping 3 Odins in a row, then if you're it's pretty easy to tell which decks you're playing against are the types that run Odins. So you can just be somewhat careful with them. Like, you could just wait until turn 9 to play him instead. And play him with something else so that you can punish your opponent for dropping Odin. Because Odin's pretty easy to counter in that regard. And more importantly, this is you can ramp into this guy. Like, the thing that's really nasty about this card is that you drop him, and regardless of the turn you drop him, if he's not dealt with, you basically win. And it's not easy for some decks to deal with him. For example, Loot Sword. Generally speaking, the part of the reason why Loot Sword is so oppressive is the premise that through the entire mid game, Sincero will be able to wipe your board regardless of what you have on the field. This guy actually survives through Sincero, because you can super evolve him, get his toughness to 9, or even without super evolve. Possibly, if you're running this turn 2 or 4, you get a Crescent Tube ride out somehow. And so you just drop him and evolve him instead. I digress. You get him to toughness 9. Sincero only does 8 damage. Swordcraft needs to do 1 extra damage, so they either need another knife or the crest, which that's a pretty big high rolling right there. I mean, it's possible to do it, but the point I'm making is it's a huge threat, especially since if you're at that point you have 11 power on the field. Most storm cards that you have access to will basically take you to lethal the next turn. Like, this card is an implicit threat. He clears the board on the opposite side. He requires very targeted removal to remove. And for some reason, people are calling him bad. I don't get it. It's so weird. Okay, then we have Zui, the savior of Dragoncraft, the 3rd ramp card, and the card that one of the cards I think that will make Runecraft a little bit more inclined to change up its game plan, because you are able to guarantee your survival through the Runecraft I'm going to win turn. I think you'll be running 3 of these in every Runecraft deck. And I'm pretty sure that's just how it be. Okay. Moving on to Abysscraft. Fair warning, I am a mode Abysscraft enjoyer, and I have a certain level of contempt for the other Abysscraft decks. So, my opinion is biased. So, keep that in mind. So, when I talk about these cards, understand that I'm probably thinking about mode first and foremost, and other decks, maybe. Okay, this card. I think you run 2 or 3. I think she replaces Bellringer Angel in most cases. Now, you might be saying, but what about the card draw? And there's a card that covers it later. I think this card is going to make mode incredibly oppressive, because mode's current weakness is the first 3 turns of the game. Having a aggressive ability having the ability to maintain board presence at the start of the game with moded Abysscraft will make it very, very consistent. Also, I'll be frank, I think this card's going in a lot of Abysscraft decks. I don't think it's a mode card. This is a card that's just so good to use in basically everything you can throw it in. And I think you run 3 of them in most of the decks you throw it in. Also, the Evolve Abysscraft deck, you run 3 of them. Mid-range, you probably run 3 of them. Like, this is a good card. In fact, I digress. This card, I don't know if the situation for this card to be good exists, but this is a card that is uniquely strong enough at its niche that I could see it being run. I think, honestly, the card that this card is most likely to replace is the 6 mana 3/3 zombie dude who summons more zombies, because this card is annoying is the same theme. It's a big card it's a 6 mana card. You drop it early, and you want to make sure you drop it so that you guarantee you have a board next turn. This card is insanely difficult to remove. This could also just be a pain in the ass to deal with Cresthaven if Havencraft wasn't the deck with the single most sources of banish in this game. Hence counters this. But it's I think this card is good. I'm not sure if the deck it belongs in is I don't think the deck, I'm not sure if it's quite gels with the current decks, but I think this is a card that is worth looking at going forward, and possibly even now. I don't think this card will see use. I don't think this card is currently good. If some kind of Crest Abyss somehow becomes a thing with a future archetype, we can look back at this card and possibly consider running it. But I think that's the only use case for this card. I just don't think it's very strong. Nezha, I don't seeing play. My issue with this card is we already have Medusa. This card's cheaper than Medusa, but it's also significantly worse. In most situations, I would want Nezha. I would rather have Medusa. The obvious only situation is your opponent drops something that you need Medusa to clear, but you have 6 mana. And even then, like, it's an okay card, but that's all it is. This is a card I think we'll see some play. 3 mana, 3/3 evolves if you have evolves. Yeah, I think this card's great. I think this card's going to be a 3 of in the Evolve Abyss. And possibly some other ones. Like, this is just a very solid 3-drop. And that really covers it. In the decks that she's run, you'll be running 2 to 3 of her. I think you run 2 to 3 of these in mode. No questions asked. It's obvious why. As far as the mode cards go, he's not great, but he's a mode card, and that more mode cards means more consistency. That's one of the bigger issues with mode in the first place. I think this card will be replacing quite a few of the non-mode cards, and I think it will. It's understated just how good that is. I think you'll be running this. I think this card will see 3 of play in relevant decks. The relevant decks being the being 2 types. Aggro decks that try to set up a big turn with the Ghost Crest or the Ghost Talisman, and this fellow, and Evolve decks, which will similarly try to set up big Evolve turns with the Ghost Crests and 0 cost cards. And 1 cost cards too. I think this card is very solid. At worst, he's a heal 2 with Rush. But, other things being equal, I think he's perfectly serviceable, and I think he'll see play. He's part of the reason why the Evolve Abyss deck is looking pretty good. Corruption. This card will see play in table games with those weird people who try to kill themselves so that their daily table game can end quicker because they hate playing the casual table game rather than grinding ladder indefinitely. This might be a good aggro card, but I don't know. I don't like the 5 mana deal damage to self approach to this card. It is not to my taste. I don't want to believe it's good. Fediel. I think Fediel is going to be fantastic. I'm already planning to try running her in Mode Abyss and change my deck accordingly, because I think that she is going to be a very solid play, to the extent that I'm actually thinking that I'll be placing her in the spot that I currently have Cerberus, which probably sounds like heresy, but the thinking I'm running with is that Cerberus has a pretty hefty cost of limiting what 1-drops you can play. To be fair, Fediel has something similar, but if I can drop Cerberus, I can. If I drop Cerberus, I can use Fediel. With Fediel, I can drop Bats as an additional 2-drop, or like the summon 2 Bats card. That will make it so that whenever Fediel is played, we're getting a 3/3 Bat with a 3/3 Bat with Drain, Almeida, because that's the likeliest 2-drop we're looking at. So, and Fediel. And all of this without Super Evolve and 1 less mana than Cerberus. Of course, the downside, of course, is Cerberus is very good reach. But, as far as a value play goes, I think Fediel is a little bit nastier. Because she's fast, she comes out a little bit faster. You can use her in a lot of situations where you'd use Rule and and Valnarek. And instead, you can wait till they have mode and build up your combo to win that way. It's not like that's going away. Then we have Belial. Naturally, I think he'll see play. He's definitely going to see play in the Evolve deck. It's possible he'll see play in many other decks because he's just default really good. I'm kind of avoiding using him in mode because I feel like if you're winning with his art, it's going to be about as fast as if you somehow were trying to do the good old I'm 20-0 Havencraft combo, where it's just like some combination of the Rule 9 Valnarek 0 mana cards plus like the consumption 5 mana 5 damage opponent card and such. Because you're not playing specifically Evolve, I don't know if you'll be able to get this effect out in any reasonable time frame. But that being said, 7 mana board wipe with a body. That's huge. Really good. Very strong. Could be game changing even. Could be the difference between the mode Abyss that plays to steal your Gensetsu and Yuzuki versus the Abyss that doesn't even bother doing that and just plays Belial to clear that board instead. It's going to be interesting seeing what cards are good. In both cases, I think that you'll be running 3 of. Honestly, you'll probably be seeing both of them in the same deck too. Except for Mode, because I think Mode only has room for 1 or 2. Or 1. Like, you only have so much room for heavy cards in there. Havencraft. This card has some solid potential for the currently extinct, probably, Storm Havencraft. It has a certain level of value in the sense that you can use it to heal while also going face. So you could possibly race your opponent with it. But I don't think you're going to be seeing it in any serious deck. But if you do see it, you'll probably see more than one. This card's interesting. At the end of turn, if this follower is evolved, deal 2 damage to all followers. Why am I reading it? Okay, so I think this card this card might see use. It's a bit of a messy card. Well, actually, probably not now that I think about it, because there was a FAQ and it was said that if she gets evolved with Galleon, you will not get this effect. At which point you probably will not be seeing her, but I think she's one of the candidates for 2 drops or 2 to 3 drops in the Ward Havencraft deck. She doesn't necessarily have Ward, but being able to evolve her to do damage to or do damage is not insignificant. She is also low-key one of the best targets for Olivia's Super Evolve. Because it doesn't count as a real evolve, so she just becomes a 4/7. This part doesn't say evolve, so with Olivia, you get this part, but you dodge this part, which is kind of nice. This card, I'm not sure if it sees play. Or I don't believe it sees play. It's kind of goofy. That's really it. I feel like this is a card to keep in the back of your mind, but I don't think that the deck that this card belongs in exists yet. I've said that a few times, but that is one of the categories I sort of work with. This card, I think, will likely see play. I've seen some people underplaying it, where it's just like, oh, dies to removal, but it's not that this card dies to removal. This card forces your opponent to use removal, which I think is something a little bit different. Most cards in this game die to removal, but if this card isn't answered, you are basically going to win. There's a lot of cards like that, but if you fill your deck with that type, eventually your opponent won't have the answers for that. That's one of the game types, or that is one of the win conditions that a lot of decks have. Hell, that's the entire premise of Mid-Range Sword, and that deck was insane for the entirety of Season 2. Will this card get killed by Odin, and will your opponent go face and possibly win? Every once in a while, this will happen, but even so, it's also just a 4-mana 4/5 with Ward. That's honestly not bad if you're going first. Moving on, Uh, Also, if she sees use, she's going to be a 2 or 3 of. I think she's likely to see use. Moving on, Sophia Zan Priestess. I think this card will be a 3 of in basically every Haven deck for the foreseeable future. Not just because her Super Evolve is okay, but the fact of the matter is that she is insanely high value. Actually, let me correct myself. She will probably not see use in Cresthaven. But if there's a deck that isn't Cresthaven, you will likely see her used quite commonly, because she's just an insanely high value card, and you don't even need to evolve her to get the value. And also, she thins your deck of cards that you wouldn't want to draw late game anyway. Just an incredibly strong card. Skyfaring Vessel, I think, will see use. You need to have you'll probably want to have a few amulets to pump it up, but free evolve ain't terrible, or 4 mana evolve. I mean, it's something. It's not like Havencraft doesn't have other cards that will just It's not like it's the first Havencraft amulet at 4 mana that you drop or you drop when your opponent lets you. It's not like I haven't seen Havencrafts drop the 6 mana board wipe and then do nothing with it. By that metric, I think this card will similarly see play. And I think that's fine. When it's used, it'll probably be a 2 or 3 of. Tico, I don't think she'll see play. She requires... she's a 1-mana card, but she requires babysitting to function. Most cards standalone do something. She's 1 mana standalone, does nothing. You have to evolve her, you have to buff her. If Havencraft has access to easy buffs, like easy and consistent, she will see play and probably be an absolute menace. Havencraft, to my knowledge, does not have easy and consistent buffs to the level that would make Tico acceptable. So I don't think she'll see play. But she exists, and there was an if in that previous statement. So think about next season. This is a pretty solid card. It's just 2 good effects tied together, but neither one of those effects is massive. I can't say whether this card will be good or not, but I'm inclined to think that this card won't be used. For the simple reason that the other draw 2 cards amulets will likely be used over it in most cases. I don't think he'll be using both of them. Galleon. You'll see 3 of her in basically every Havencraft deck while she is available. Except for Storm Havencraft, probably. Fantastic card, very strong. I think this card will actually supplant John in most decks where you would run her. For that reason, I think you're only going to be seeing like one or two of these of Vera, but in a lot of decks that are currently running John, I think you run Vera instead. Which might sound odd because John's a pseudo win condition for Ward, but the difference here is that I think targeted Banish is going to be a bit more valuable than clear do 6 damage, because some of the big threats will have more health than that and might not be targetable by evolve shenanigans. And also, she's a whole lot stickier than John, with her requiring possibly 4 attacks to die. That's a pretty tough ask in a lot of cases. And also having the bonus Super Skybound, which Honestly speaking, I don't think will be super relevant, but it does. It will be relevant every once in a while, and that could make the difference, or could make a difference. But I think, but most importantly, I get the impression that Wardhaven Craft is going to be a mix. Is going to be a mix of Crest and Ward. Or I think there'll be two flavors. The one that uses Sindolphin and some of the Evolve kits. Actually, no. I think it'll probably gel into the point where you still use Marwyn. But I think it's going to be one of those ones where you sort of bleed your opponent to death rather than you really care about combos. That being said, though, this card, speaking of combos, this one is really nasty with the bird, or not the bird, but the Griffin. The one, the 8 mana. Whenever you pop an amulet, you get Storm. Just auto evolve it with Skyfaring Vessel and also enable it to have Storm. That's just some gross stuff right there. Either way, I think you see 2 to 3 of Vera in the decks that she's run. Or actually 1 to 3. I think 3 will be rare though. And last but not least, we move to neutral cards. Oh wait, no, Portal. That was not a slight toward Portal. Don't you dare think otherwise. I love Portal. Okay, I don't think Show is all that good. He's one of those 3 mana Storm cards. I don't think giving him Barrier is great. I think he's built around Beelzebub's effect, but I don't think that is quite fair to him. 3 mana 2/1 in general feels really weak, even with Barrier. Like even if he had Barrier baseline, I don't know if he'd be all. I think he'd be playable if you skipped this part of text. But I'm not even sure if he'd be popular then. Tsubasa, I think this card is actually going to be insane. It's 3 mana, 3/1 with Rush. This means that you can... I think this card will replace the 2 mana, 2/1 that gives you a big puppet because it cuts out the middleman. It increases the Skybound art of all cards in hand, which I think will be used in any... which means that he's basically going to be a staple in any deck that uses Skybound arts cards. And in general, I think he's just one of the strongest, or he's one of the stronger 2-drops available to Portal, which is saying a fair bit. Portal has some pretty strong 2-drops to begin with. I think you'll be seeing him fairly often in a variety of Portal Craft decks. I think this card is going to be part of a resurgence of Artifact Portal that doesn't seem to be recognized. There are 3 cards that I think are going to be integral to Artifact Portal coming back. And coming back in a tyrannical and terrifying manner. Isaac is one of them, because he's a 2 mana, don't need to evolve for it, get half of a artifact. That's pretty damn good. The other one is Cassius. If Artifact Portal comes back, Cassius and Isaac are 100% in the new Artifact Portal. There's one more card that I think will cinch it, but it's in neutral, and I'll be talking about that one later. Okay, Eustace. Joining the ranks of Portal's many ridiculous 5-drops, we have Eustace. It's weird, right? I think this card is good. I think this is a very strong card. He's obviously meant for a theoretical Evolve Portal archetype, right? But there's so many good 5-drops in Portal already. Even in this set, we have 10 new cards, and 3 of them are 5-drops. So you're probably not seeing him in you're probably not seeing him in Artifact. We already have 2 5-drops in Artifact. Actually, we have 3 because you're probably going to be running with these 2. You're almost certainly going to be running the play 2 artifacts from your hand card in all likelihood. You might see him in you very well might see him in the Evolve deck because he enables Evolve, but would you really use him over Luo and Zwei? I don't know. I think this is a very solid card, but the saturation of 5-drops in Portal is insane. Okay. But I think he will see experimental play. Whether he wins out in the 5-drop bowl is a completely different story. I don't dare to predict that one. At the very least, he's not going into Artifact, and I think Artifact could end up being the meta Portal deck this patch. Ilsa, Brutal Drill Sergeant, I feel like she's a side grade to Odin. Therefore, that makes her a good card, but I don't think that she's better than Odin, so I don't think she'll see play. Moving on, Stonebreaker. I really don't like this card. Portal already has a 3 mana deal 6 damage in the form of the Puppet Shield. This one's similar, but different. But I still don't like it. It's just a iffy. I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating the effect. It just feels a bit weak. Maybe if I play it, I'll change my mind. But it's gonna be one of those conditional removals, I think. Will it see play? Maybe. If it does, you'll see 2 or 3 of them in the deck that's using it, in all likelihood. Chaos Legion. This is a game ender type card. I think this will be used at the very least in Puppet. Because, I think it'll be used in the Puppet Evolve hybrid deck. Because Puppet was already sort of the aggro-ish Portal deck to begin with. But we'll see. Maybe you'll see it in a egg or an egg type deck, or egg evolve type deck instead. Luo's interesting. I feel like he's going to be a card that is used specifically based on what the quote-unquote Tier 0, Tier 1 decks are. If the Tier 1, Tier 0 decks are like Tempo Forest or like Sword, some kind of crazy Storm Sword type stuff, you'll probably see Luo as a 3-of in every Portal deck. Or most Portal decks. As a counter. If Crest Haven and Spell Boost Rune are the meta, you will likely not see Luo at all. Or you'll see him, but he won't be super common. The issue with this card is that there are 2 types of playstyles in card games. There's the build your strategy so that to the extent that your opponent can't build your strategy faster than your opponent can, or break down your opponent's strategy so they can't build their strategy so you win. Luo is the latter. But he doesn't really do anything for your own strategy. He is a card that throws a massive wrench into your opponent's plan. But sometimes instead of a wrench, you need a screwdriver. It's just that kind of card. He will be situational. He could be a 3 of in the when he's relevant, but he's also going to might not be relevant, depending on what you're expecting your matchups to be. At least that's my take on it. And then we have Beelzebub. I think Beelzebub he's got big Ryo energy, is the way I've been thinking of it. He's got the same stat line. He will sort of clear the board, and he has that stackable deal ability that makes your opponent take more damage. I think he's going to be strongest in Egg Portal because he makes the eggs a lot more threatening. But at the same time, he's pretty slow. I don't think he's a bad card, though, but he sort of reads as a control card, and Portal hasn't really felt like a control. I don't think I've seen something that would really feel like control Portal. Will he be good? Rather, will he be seen? I'm not sure. I don't think he'll be a commonly seen card for a variety of reasons. If he's used, I'm sure you'll be running 2 or 3 of them, though. He's not the kind of card that you run as a 1 of. Okay, we're moving on to the last bit. So we have the neutrals. This card, I think, could potentially see play in Ward Havencraft. Maybe like 1 or 2 other types, but honestly, even in Ward Havencraft, I don't know if she's unique enough to justify it. This effect is... I don't really know how to evaluate it. It could be incredibly strong, but I just don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like you have to play it. The fanfare is nice, but at the same time, the fanfare effect is nice. I don't think this is a bad card. I think you'll see her as a 1 or 2 of in control-ish decks of various types. But specifically, Ward Havencraft will probably consider running her. This is a card that is meant to function in Evolve decks. I honestly don't know how much use this card will be, because it's a 2-mana to do nothing. If you've unlocked Super Evolution, this card becomes a slightly better card, but to be frank, 2 mana 4/4 with Rush on turn 6, 7, 8. It's okay, but it's nowhere near an ideal play most of the time. Sure, if you're trying to evolve, or if you're trying to stack evolves for Skybound, I can sort of see it. But even then, a lot of the decks where that's going to be their game plan are going to have things like Seophon, or where you'll want an unevolved follower, or Abysscraft with Nehan. I mean, sure, it could just be like an evolve to evolve for an extra evolve. It's nice. It pushes you closer to getting a Sin Dolphin invoke proc, or like pushing something to super evolve. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if it's in the deck with where you're trying to stack or get Belial as to super Skybound. But at the same time, I feel like of the evolve cards, it's one of those ones where you'll kind of wish that you didn't have to run it, and some people will actually just cut it and try to run something else instead. This is one of those cards which is kind of unfortunate. I think the card itself is kind of good, but I don't think it's great, and I don't think it's specific enough of a niche that you'll ever run it in any deck. 3 mana, 3/3 aura. It's good. Return 1 life is also solid, but I don't think it's worth a card slot in any deck I can think of. It's just one of those generically good cards that doesn't really have a niche. Grand Vegeta will be used in Mode Abyss, and it'll probably be used in most Evolved decks too. Card's bloody insane. Earlier I mentioned that I think Mode Abyss will be replacing the Bellringer Angel, and this is the card I think they're replacing it with. Being able to draw 2 followers with this card will easily cover up the card advantage loss that not using Angel will give, and you're replacing it with another mode card. It's just massive gains all around. And not just another mode card, it's just late in the game, you're playing Mode Abysscraft, you're on turn 8 or 9, you've already popped Shamnacha. You're dropping this card as a 5/4 with Rush that deals 5 damage to a random enemy follower and draws you 2 cards. This card is insane. And even outside of mode, you're still dropping this card as a 5/4 with Rush that either deals damage or draws 2 cards. It's just good. Just an insanely good card. Okay, and next we're going to be talking about what I've been mentally calling the savior of Artifact Portal. I think you will be running this card as a very important combo piece for a number of decks. But the first deck that I could think of where do you only run 1 8-drop or 1 7 to 8 drop, right? The first one I could think of was Artifact Portal. This card can be used to tutor Ralmia, which is insane for Artifact Portal, because Artifact Portal tends to have dog shit card draw. You'll be seeing this in various other decks too, mind you. It will probably be ubiquitous in a lot of big combo decks. You'll probably see people trying to use this to get Belial. You'll probably see people using this to get, I don't know, your Runecraft combo cards. You'll probably Kuon and Kuon and Cocutus. You might see people trying to use it to get Fenny. I don't know if you use it for some other decks though. Either way. You might just see it, I even considered dropping it in mode just as I want my big cards and I want some card draw stuff. But the biggest winner for this, I think, is Artifact Portal, because you can toss this in there and she's just sort of not a big deal until you guarantee the part where you drop Ralmia on curve. Possibly multiple times. That's some really powerful stuff right there. I think she'll see play. I think she'll be a 3 of irrelevant decks. As I mentioned before, 2 to 3 of irrelevant decks until people try to start cutting it. 1 to 2 irrelevant decks. 2 to 3 of irrelevant decks. I don't quite get this one, because the way I see it. Do you when you get 6 evolves, do you get 3 of these if you're running 3? Invoke this card. When this card is invoked, gain crest, return card to hand. So, in theory, if you have... Or rather, the thing about this card that gets me is... you probably would... Most people are probably expecting to run 1 of these. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a dragon deck that runs 2. With the premise that you get this card, Apparently it doesn't work with Finny. That's fine. But you invoke the card, right? And then you will use that 6 mana reduced mana cost so you can drop both of them on the same turn. Because one's at 4, one's at 10, one's at 6. You get them both to full power and then you drop the thing, but it's kind of messy. I think Sandalphon will see play in a few Evolve decks. He's just free value. And he's a decent reward for going big on Evolve. I don't think you'll be running 3 of them, though. Honestly, not even sure if you'll be running 2. It's an interesting card in that regard. And that covers the whole thing, doesn't it? Hopefully that was a worthy watch. Before we go, I think I'll just quickly give my prediction on what we're going to be seeing with meta. Forestcraft, I'm pretty sure most of the decks that currently function will still function, but I think that Tempo will get a boost, and we might start seeing some fairy-based archetypes, because the Evolve Forest is probably going to get cannibalized by just an aggro version of Forest that focuses heavily on doing rush damage with fairies and unoptimized roaches. And Odin. Swordcraft. I think Swordcraft is going to be obscene, but at the same time, I don't feel like a lot of people seem to think that the meta is going to be the same and Lootcraft is just going to be the default. I heavily disagree. I think we're going to be seeing a big resurgence of mid-range sword, and I think there's going to be a Evolved Sword that is disgusting to play against. The big thing to consider is that Sword is getting access to ridiculous amounts of healing, which used to be mid-range Sword's main weakness. You held board, but you couldn't deal with damage that you took, which is part of the reason why it sort of fell off when you started having decks like Loot, which could just go face and make it so that you couldn't win. And also just the availability of answers to your boards. Sword's also just getting some really nasty board cards. Runecraft, I already mentioned it, but I think that Runecraft is going to have several viable archetypes. I think that the current unchanging hybrid Runecraft is going to be suffering a little bit as new cards add new ways to or add new boards that you might not be able to counter easily. There's only so many boards that you can counter with just Kuon as it is, and every expansion and Ingria becomes a little bit more fair. For that reason, I strongly suspect that we'll be seeing a tempo spell boost based Runecraft that will probably be more common, not just because of the novelty of it being of using something different for Runecraft that still uses all the bullshit combos, but also just because I think it will have a stronger early game, which is a very important thing. Similarly, I think that we are getting to the threshold where Dirtcraft might not be just a meme. I don't think it will completely leave the shadow of Spell Boost Runecraft, but I think that Dirt Runecraft will be a little bit more like a mid-range Sword was this patch, where it was still an acceptable deck, and you could actually still climb with it. It just wasn't the popular one. Dragoncraft is kind of hard to predict. I think there's going to be a real evolve-based deck with Dragon, but at the end of the day, it's just gonna. I think you're going to just see a lot of the same cards. You will try to ramp. You will try to get to your biggest most difficult cards to remove out as quickly as possible, and will try and you'll hopefully finish with a big storm card like Mugen or the gold 10-mana card, or like 3 Zoes in a row. I feel like Dragon will be in a slightly better place than it currently is, despite some Doom posting. Abysscraft. I think Abysscraft will have several viable decks. I think Mode is going to be a very strong contender for one of the best decks of the set. But I'm biased because I am a Mode enjoyer. Well, maybe if that's the case, I should say, nah, Mode's gonna suck. Please don't nerf us. But I don't think that that's really the case either. Either way, I think that Evolve-based Abysscraft will be a very relevant archetype. I think mid-range with will be the deck that uses Cerberus. We might see something that is built around around Necromancy, because we have quite a few cards at that point. There might be some creative Necromancy deck that is now enabled because we might have hit the singularity point with Fediel and the 2-mana card from last set and a whole bunch of other stuff. Karin also has some nice synergy with Nethead, because you can super evolve her, then get a free 3-drop every turn, which means that you can get value off of this, or off of his free evolves. All kinds of interesting stuff. Havencraft will... Cresthaven got a tap with Benison getting nerfed, but you're getting a lot of good cards from this set. Galleon's fantastic. Vera is one of those cards that's really good regardless of whether you're running Crest or Wardhaven. In fact, I would argue that she's probably better for Cresthaven than in the sense that she can get free super evolves. She can banish unwanted or undesirable targets. Honestly, I think Cresthaven's going to still be alive and well, but I think Wardhavencraft is also going to be a menace. And I think you'll be seeing I think you'll also just see a hybrid between Ward, I feel like rather than Havencraft having a deck, they're going to just have a spectrum. On one side Ward, one side Crest, and maybe there will be a triangle point at the top where a hypothetical evolved deck would be. But I don't think there will be a full evolved deck. But you're going to just... whatever meta Havencraft deck you have will be probably composed of bits and pieces of all 3 archetypes. And it'll probably meld together into something incredibly nasty. I think Havencraft is eating good this patch. And Portalcraft. One thing to be concerned with is I don't think Puppets really got much going for them this patch. I think you'll be able to synergize with some of the evolved cards, but I think Puppet's going to be basically as it was. And I think that will mean that it's fine, but I don't think it's going to be much better than it was, which it wasn't really super meta to begin with. But I think it's still good. I think Eggs got a slight bit of buff from Beelzebub and Chaos Legion. I think Tsubasa is going to be good for most of the archetypes. You'll probably see some mix of... I think a lot of the evolve-based cards will probably mix well with egg Portal Craft, weirdly enough. But honestly, I strongly suspect that we're going to see a brutal and quick resurgence of Artifact Portal. Because Isaac and Cassius were sneakily thrown in, and they are ridiculously strong. A lot of the current Portalcraft artifact generators usually give half of one of these rather than half of one of these. And we now have that on a 2-drop. A 2-drop of all things. More than that, we got this guy right here. He's a 5 mana, doesn't need to evolve. He can do 5 damage to all followers. 5 damage board wipe is a massive push for Portalcraft. It means that as long as you have one of these in hand, you don't actually need to have a ominous artifact on standby. You can just start with when you start crafting. You can start with the damage one and just ping as you go. The other thing that's nice about Artifact is that you don't need to run 7 drops. So the only heavy card you can run, I mean, I already went over this, but basically means that you can tutor out Ralmia. Ralmia being able to consistently drop Ralmia on 8 or 7 is going to probably break the game a little bit. Because you're going to probably because between these two, you're probably going to be able to consistently get out 2 to 3 fully built artifacts by that point, and now you'll be able to consistently drop Ralmia on 8. That is really difficult to deal with. Okay, that is my overview of how I've viewed the next set's cards. Hopefully this was enjoyable. If you have any comments, by all means, please post them. The set releases, I think, tonight. And I'm looking forward to... And I'm probably going to record my pack openings and some deck testing. And if I make a deck that I like, I might try my hand at making a guide or something. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a good one. Peace.